BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Greg Foote, and welcome to the show that investigates your suggested wonder products. Today's topic comes in from 11-year-old Isla and her dad Rob in Worcestershire. Hello, you two. Nice to see you.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Your dad sent your message over to me. Thanks so much for suggesting this wonder product. Tell me what it is. I think I can see it there in the Zoom screen.
It's bottled water. I would like to know if it's better for your body than drinking tap water, since there's so many different types, including tap mineral and spring water.
Right, so health is the biggest question, is it? And what about you, Rob?
We found your podcast and we've not stopped listening to it since we found it.
Oh, amazing.
And I mentioned it to Isla, and then she instantly came up with the idea. And I thought, wow, I've started the wheels in my head turning. And I thought, well, what is the difference between all these different bottles of water? And as Isla said, there's all the different types. So,
Isla, you're looking at the bottle closely. What can you see? What does it say to you? Does it have ingredients? Does it have any claims?
It's still spring water.
there's like calcium in there. There's chloride, 150.
0.7 sodium.
Yeah.
What do you think they are, Isla? Do you think they're in there to... in there to... make us feel better? What do you reckon?
I think they're in there to preserve it more than anything.
Isla, do you think that the water that you get from the tap and the water that you get in a bottle of water like the one in front of you, how do you think they're different? Do you think one could be cleaner than the other one?
I think this one's probably cleaner because of all the processes it goes through.
Okay, so you think bottled water might be cleaner than tap water?
Yes.
And which do you think is cheaper?
I think tap water's cheaper, but
Yeah,
I don't know from a long-term perspective, because you would have is it your water bill or something?
Yeah,
Wouldn't it go up
If you drank loads more.
So wouldn't your bill be more expensive than buying, say, 20 bottles of water?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'll run some numbers, or I'll ask the experts.
It'd be good as well, Greg, to know like the cost to the environment from, like we were talking about this, that surely tap water would be better for the environment, but actually it goes through a lot of processing, doesn't it? Because it's recycled and there's all the infrastructure that's laid to get it to us and etc.
We're drinking so much bottled water that this is just going to be chucked in the bin and probably go to landfill if it's not put in the right bin or something like that.
Well, I think you've given me a good challenge. Bottled water has been requested by a lot of listeners, so I'm excited to find out as much as I can learn about this in a few days, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
If you have a wonder product you would like me to investigate, please do send it over. You can send an email to sliced.bread@bbc.co.uk or a WhatsApp voice note to 07543 306 807. So, bottled water versus tap water. Isla wants to know which is cleaner, healthier, cheaper and greener. And I'm also going to throw tastier in there too, because I've got a chat lined up with a water sommelier later. I'm going to start though with which one is cleaner and healthier. And for that, I'm calling up a lecturer in water chemistry at the Cranfield Water Science Institute, Dr. Emma Goslan. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning.
I was just having a little glug of water, which feels apt.
I've got tea, a cup of tea.
That's got water in it. That's allowed.
It has, yes. I got it from the tap.
So, listener Isla wants to know about the differences between bottled water and tap water. Let's start with tap water then. Where does it come from, Emma?
Well, it comes from surface water or groundwater. Surface water is rivers, lakes, streams, reservoirs. And groundwater comes from deep down in the ground, and that gets taken from deep wells or boreholes. And the taste of the surface water tends to be a bit softer, but it can depend on the location. Some rivers and reservoirs can be quite hard, especially in the south and east of England. The groundwater is also hard because it's in contact with the minerals and the rocks for a very long time.
Yeah, so water isn't just H2O, is it? There are those minerals in there as well. What are those minerals?
The minerals are things like calcium, magnesium, potassium. There's salts, there's organics, which can in some places give the water a slightly sort of orangey brownish colour. There's algae, bacteria, particles. If you think about river water, it's got a lot of particles from the sediments. So there's many things in the water.
So how is that treated then before it comes out of our tap so that it's safe to drink?
Basic water treatment will remove the particles, the organics and microorganisms. And advanced water treatment will remove all those things, but it will also remove micropollutants such as pesticides. We also use chlorine, and that's a very, very important part of the process because it inactivates the microorganisms in the water. So essentially, it's getting rid of any bacteria that will cause you harm.
Does any of that chlorine kind of stay in the water? Is there a residual amount that comes out the tap?
Does, and this is one of the advantages of using chlorine. The water gets from the tap through the distribution system from the waterworks.
Oh, like in the pipes and stuff?
That's right. It keeps the water clean, having that chlorine residual. So anything that's in the distribution system, any bacteria that's in there will be inactivated.
So now we can compare it to bottled water for Isla. I've been looking at lots of the bottles. They tend to be either spring water or mineral water. How are they different?
They have a lot of similarities. Both of them have to come from an underground water source that's natural. They both have to be free of parasites and bacteria, and the source has to be protected from pollution. So in those terms, they are identical. The difference is that the water composition for mineral water must have kept its original purity. So it has to stay the same from source to bottling.
Oh, and what does keep its original purity from source to bottling mean?
Yes, that means that its properties stay the same from when you take it out of the source to putting it into the bottle. And the same isn't true for spring water. With the mineral water, it can be treated by 5 different types of treatment, but the overall constituents of the water have to remain the same. With spring water, you can actually treat it any way you like.
Okay, so I know you just said that both spring and mineral water have to come from natural sources that are free of parasites and bacteria. But if tap water is treated lots, I mean, chlorine is added, for example, whereas mineral water is essentially bottled from the source, does that mean that tap water could be the cleaner of the two?
There's been tests done to look at the microorganisms or the bacteria in bottled water and in tap water. And often the bottled water has less bacteria, but in a few cases it has more than the tap water. So in about a quarter of cases in a study that I looked at. It is still subject to very similar regulatory parameters, and that's in terms of chemicals and bacteria. So it does undergo many tests and regular tests to make sure it's remains safe.
Okay. Emma, what about what's in them? Isla and her dad Rob were reading off the minerals in their bottle of water, calcium, chloride, and there are very different levels of those minerals in different bottled water. I've been kind of poring over their nutritional information. Do they offer any health benefits?
There was a conference in 2005 held by the World Health Organization that looked into this, and they did conclude that mineral water has got some health benefits in terms of the minerals it provides. If you have more minerals in it, it can reduce heart disease. But I think we need to think about this in a worldwide context where not everybody has access to supermarkets full of different fruit and vegetables.
So you said earlier that some tap water can have lots of minerals in it, especially if it comes from groundwater sources. Does bottled water, especially mineral bottled water, have significantly higher level of those minerals and therefore potentially higher health benefits than tap water?
Well, many tap waters will contain similar amounts of the same minerals. There may be a benefit if you're drinking very soft tap water.
But actually, if we're eating a normal diet, does that fade all of this into insignificance?
Yeah, if you're eating a diet with fruit and vegetables, you'll be getting those minerals anyway, usually at higher levels than in drinking water. Green leafy vegetables tend to be good for minerals.
Before you go, Emma, could you help us with the numbers? I was chatting to Isla and Rob about this. A bottle of water in a supermarket will say work out at around 60p to £2 a litre. What would be the equivalent for a litre of tap water?
It really varies. I know what I pay for my tap water, and that's 0.19 pence per litre. So bottled water, if it's at £2 per litre, bottled water would be 1,000 times more expensive than tap.
Crikey, that's a big difference.
We are paying for convenience of the container and I suppose the whole company buying it. So we are paying for a package when we buy bottled water. And possibly the taste. Tap water taste varies depending on where you drink it. And some people develop a taste for a certain type of bottled water and they enjoy drinking that, and that's down to personal taste. But it's not better or worse. It's just personal taste and choice.
Thanks, Emma. Great to chat to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks very much.
Talking of taste, I have found some very unique and expensive bottles of water on the website of what is apparently London's first dedicated water boutique. To hear more about those, I'm going to speak with water sommelier Milin Patel.
Hello, Greg. Nice to meet you.
You too. I mean, I've never met a water sommelier before, so I'm excited about that.
Well, today's your day and let's hydrate the imagination.
Tell me what that involves then. Are there qualifications to become a water sommelier in the same way that there is for wine?
You can study, but I believe that all of us have the water sommelier qualities. And the reason that we don't expand on this is because we've never been taught from a young age to describe the taste of water.
Go on then, teach me how to describe water.
The description of water is all about the natural minerals within the water. So your calcium, magnesium, potassium, bicarbonates, silica, sulfates, and all of these minerals within the water have a certain taste and a mouthfeel. Some natural waters from volcanic regions may have a high level of silica. So silica gives it a beautiful, silky, velvet, smooth mouthfeel, which is very distinctive. And then you have waters with potentially high levels of calcium, magnesium, and these can taste creamy in certain waters.
So I was looking at the Fine Liquids website where you can order bottles of water from sources all over the world. Now, you can pay around £5 a litre for water from the Czech Republic that comes from 90-million-year-old ice sheets with the water accessed via a deep borehole almost 300 metres deep. Or you can jump to £24 a litre for water from clouds in the Canary Island mountains, or £50 a litre for water taken from an 8,000-year-old spring in Slovenia. I'm fascinated by this. Tell me where the value of these waters comes from. Is it their provenance? Is it their taste?
So we have vintage for wine, but we also have vintage for water. So you have very virgin waters, i.e. rainfall from clouds, which are bottled. And these are very silky and soft. And these may have a 3-week vintage. Then we have other waters which have been flowing through geological strata for nearly 5,000 years before it comes up to the surface or more. So the longer the water is in contact with the underground subterranean surface, the more minerals it can absorb.
And the stronger it will taste. I mean, these pricey bottles are obviously not for the average consumer.
So some of these waters are very niche and they are there for an experience. Sometimes the cost of them, of going to the source, bottling, can be expensive because these are individuals that really care about the source of their natural spring. And majority of the time, these are family-run businesses that just want to share these unique experience waters.
Milin, you've got a glass of water in front of you.
I do.
I'd love to know, what is it? What have you chosen for our conversation?
Tap water. This is, genuine tap water from Thames Water.
Okay, you haven't opted for a bottled water that's come from the clouds or from deep underground. You've gone for a glass of tap.
I consider myself one of the luckiest people in the world that I can go to a tap and drink. So, my opinion, best water. Cheers.
Cheers. The final category in Listener Isla's top trumps of bottled water versus tap water is which is greener. Now, I appreciate this feels like well-trodden ground with a clear answer, but I have heard people say, look, water bottles are recyclable and new ones are made from the old ones, so that shouldn't be a reason to not buy them, right? Well, to discuss that, I'm going to have a quick chat with Adam Herriot from climate change NGO WRAP. Hi, Adam.
Hiya, how are you?
Well, thanks. So the perils of single-use plastic water bottles have been talked about a lot. People say they take hundreds of years to decompose. They're made of PET, right? What is that, and how damaging can it be?
So PET it's an acronym of polyethylene triphthalate, I believe it is. It's a nice long one. So PET is obviously a much easier way to say it. It's quite a common plastic. It's a very useful material. It protects food. It's very lightweight. However, like any packaging, it does come with an environmental impact through obviously the manufacture of it, the transport of it, then how we then dispose of it. Plastic, as you may well know, if it isn't disposed of properly and isn't managed properly, can leak into the environment and sort of break down into what we call microplastics, which can then get into various different systems.
But on the flip side, water bottle manufacturers say, hey, these water bottles are highly recyclable.
Yeah, so they are. They're very highly recyclable. I mean, every local authority across the UK collects these water bottles for recycling at the curbside. So they get collected and then go to a facility where the material is sorted into different types of materials, different types of plastics. That PET water bottle will go to a recycler. They'll shred it, they'll wash it, and they'll melt it to be made into new products. It is very circular material.
And the problem is it's only circular if people do recycle those bottles. Most brands now say that they have 100% recyclable bottles. Oh, but on that, Adam, is the cap recyclable?
Yes, the cap is recyclable. It is a different material, so it isn't made out of PET. It's usually made out of what we call polypropylene or PP. That is recyclable. That's why we make sure when you are putting your bottle into your recycling bin, you are screwing the cap back on to make sure that gets captured and recycled as well.
Gotcha. Well, what I was going to ask earlier is what are the stats on recycling? How good are we at that?
So I think average across all what we say food grade PET, so any PET that has contact with food, so it might not just be water bottles, but at the moment it's got an average recycling rate of about between 22 and 28%, and that's projected to go up to an average of 50%. So yeah, as long as we're collecting it and it's being put back into something new, it's replacing the virgin plastic, that's the main thing we need to be doing here.
It's good to hear that we are recycling more and that trend is set to increase. Of course, it's good to see brands are using that recycled plastic. Evian say that their bottles contain on average 25% recycled plastic across the range, and they're aiming to reach 100% by 2025. Buxton say they are already there with 100% recycled bottles. So is it fair to say that the story around single-use plastic bottles in the UK is maybe not as bad as some may expect?
I think it's maybe not as bad as people maybe expect compared to alternative materials. It's very efficient at what it does. It's just making sure that we are managing it.
Listener Isla has concerns about plastic bottles going into the bin. Her dad, Rob, has concerns about them being shipped off to somewhere. And also, he's wondering, once you put in the whole infrastructure for tap water, processing, etc., could that increase its environmental footprint? Does the gap close at that point?
That's a very, very good question. I think in terms of material being, say, sent to another country to be recycled, the closer to home you can do the process, the better. It's obviously got less transport of material and stuff. But if it goes into Europe, for example, and gets recycled there, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We live in a world economy. Does the gap close if you for the impact of the additional water infrastructure? That's a bigger, wider question because of the water infrastructure. We're talking sort of 70-odd million households in the UK, or whatever it is, or people in the UK. So the scales of economy, isn't it, I guess?
So it feels like a strange question to ask, Adam, but I ask all my guests. In terms of the eco effect, the kind of green cred of bottled water versus tap water, is bottled water the best thing since sliced bread or marketing BS?
I would say use the tap and have a glass or refill your own bottle rather than buying single use. If you are stuck between a rock and a hard place and you really need a bottle of water and that's the only option you have, then it's fine. Just make sure you put it in the recycling after.
Thanks, Adam. Great to chat to you.
You too. Cheers.
Here's how my other guests responded to the SBBS question. On taste, here's water sommelier Milin Patel.
For me, The best water in the world is from a tap, safe and reliable. However, bottled waters from a natural source is like a fine wine, and you don't drink fine wine every day.
And on cleanliness, health and cost, here's lecturer in water chemistry, Dr. Emma Goslan.
It's a very convenient drink to buy when you're out and about. I enjoy drinking it sometimes, but I think the tap is cheap, it's accessible, and it's very clean.
So what does listener Isla make of all this? Let's find out. Hello again.
Hello.
Hello.
How's your week been, Isla?
Good, thank you.
You wanted to know how bottled water compares to tap water, right? Essentially, which is cleaner, which is healthier, which is cheaper, and which is greener. Is that about right?
Yes, yeah.
Let's go greener first. I think that's as you're going to expect. So, yeah, you can recycle single-use plastic water bottles. And yes, the bottles are being made from more and more of that recycled plastic, but they're not all made of fully recycled plastic yet. So that new plastic that goes into them uses a lot of energy. The biggest issue, though, is, and check out this fact, I read it on the Recycle Now website, it's estimated that almost 36 million plastic bottles are used every day in the UK, but less than 20 million are recycled every day.
What?
It's quite shocking almost.
So where does that leave you with which one you think is greener, Isla?
Tap water.
I think so as well. Should we move on to cleaner?
Yeah.
Isla, you thought bottled water might be cleaner than tap water because you thought bottled water, you said, goes through a lot of processing.
Yeah.
So it turns out that bottled water, in particular bottled mineral water, actually has to maintain what they call its original purity, which means they've essentially got to bottle what comes from the source.
So it's actually less clean. It's not as clean as tap water in a way, then it could have all sorts of stuff in it.
So I thought, just like you just thought as well, that therefore tap water would actually be cleaner than bottled water because actually the tap water has more processing than the bottled water. But an expert told me that in tests, 3/4 of bottled water samples had less bacteria than tap water.
Is it because it goes through pipes and the pipes are disgusting and horrible?
Well, I hope they're not. There is a little bit of chlorine left in the tap water, which can help kill any bugs that it picks up along the way through those hopefully squeaky clean pipes. But yeah, that's what the tests apparently show, that the bottled water samples,
Clean.
when they've done the tests, they appear to be cleaner, right? But bottom line here, because I don't want anyone to worry about this, there are strict safety standards that both tap water and bottled water have to meet. So they are both safe to drink.
Yeah.
So Isla, what is your conclusion, please, on which is cleaner?
I think that bottled water is cleaner than tap water. Yeah, both are safe to drink, which is quite reassuring, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Also in the healthier category, which kind of links to this, so when you were looking at the bottle, Isla, you saw there were loads of minerals on the back, right? You read them out to me. Go on.
Additives. There were lots of different additives to the water I saw as well.
They're minerals that have essentially come from the rock that the water has passed through.
Mm-hmm.
And different water comes through different types of rock, and it takes different amounts of time as it goes past that rock. So some bottles of water have more minerals than others, or more of different types of minerals than others, and that's what can affect the taste of those different bottles, which I think's super interesting. There is some thought that some of the minerals, especially calcium and magnesium, could be good for you. So bottled water may have a small health benefit. However, some tap waters can have just as many minerals in them as some bottled waters. And if you eat a good diet of fruit and vegetables, you're going to get way more minerals from that than the water that you drink. So eating well is much more important than the water you drink.
Yeah, that does make sense. You've got like calcium in vegetables and probably have a higher percentage of calcium in broccoli, for example.
Let's just see. Best source of calcium in vegetables. Hey, you're right. Isla, you're so smart. Green leafy vegetables and legumes, or greens and beans.
There you go.
Final one then. You asked which one's cheaper.
Yeah, I think
What was your prediction?
tap water.
Yeah, so a big litre bottle of water from the shops can cost you anything from 60 pence to £2. One of the experts I spoke to told me that their tap water costs them 1 pence for 5 litres.
Whoa. That's a massive difference, isn't it?
So if you do the maths, which I've done, bottled water can therefore be 300 to 1,000 times the price of tap water.
Wow. I think we should definitely use tap water more than bottled water.
That's for the common bottled water brands that you can just pick up in a shop. And you could, if you want, pay way more than that. You can pay over £150 a litre for glacier water from Patagonia.
We saw that when we were researching it.
Did you? There was some water melted from Arctic icebergs.
Is it?
That's super pricey. It's a lot of pocket money, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why couldn't we just wait for it to snow and then get a sample of snow from the sky and then
bottle
it up
it,
and then put it in the fridge and it will turn into water?
Yeah, and apparently that has hardly got many minerals in it because it's kind of come from clouds. So it might taste quite different, or it might taste of nothing. But it won't have been tested, so I should probably say don't drink it. Yeah. So, Isla, I'm going to give you the challenge that I give all of the listeners of the show. What do you think now about bottled water versus tap water?
I think tap water is probably a lot better to drink than bottled water. Not necessarily health reasons or anything like that, but it's cheaper, it's better for the environment, and the footprint on it is a lot less.
Bro, have I done a good enough job?
Yes.
Phew. Great to speak to you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. All right, bye. That is it from me this week. If this episode hasn't quenched your thirst, why not go listen to an episode on kombucha or turmeric drinks or meal replacement drinks or energy drinks? They are all in the Sliced Bread back catalogue that you can find on BBC Sounds. Next week, after the recent shampoo episode, it was always going to happen, and lots of you have asked for it, I'll be looking into conditioners and heat protection products too. What do they do, and can they deliver softer, more volumised hair? I'll be finding out. See ya.
I'm Paris Lees. Welcome to The Flip Side from BBC Radio 4. In each episode, I'll tell 2 stories from opposite sides of the coin and use science to ask questions about elements of the human experience that we sometimes take for granted.
Turns out that this person that I sublet my apartment to, he was, a scammer.
I feel like now I am the person that I was when I was on the internet at 13.
It's lies and it's covered with lipstick and glitter.
Subscribe to The Flip Side with me, Paris Lees, on BBC Sounds.